Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of the Seric Show, where we go to another playoff breakdown. Here we have the Vancouver Canucks versus the Minnesota Wild. We will be going through the Minnesota Wild's team first. Eric, forwards for the Minnesota Wild. What do we think?
The Minnesota Wild, for a couple of years now, they've struggled to score a lot of goals. One of the key factors for them in this series to help them try to generate enough goals is Kevin Fiala. He had a really amazing, especially second half of the season. I don't think there was a hotter player in the NHL. Other than maybe Mika Zibanejad or something, but especially on this team without a real supporting cast. He put up so many highlight reel goals, and he really showed the potential, that he's been promised for so many years. And he's a very important piece up front for them. They sort of have a balanced attack more so than other teams with four lines that, maybe not really a first, second, third, fourth line, but lines that, they're just comfortable playing over and over. Maybe they'll probably chase some matchups to try to shut down Pettersson and Horvat on Vancouver, but they're kind of more balanced lines. It seems like they're all either second or third line calibers. There's not really a fourth line that's going to be super weak, so that's a strength for them is having that depth. But other than Fiala, there's not really a high end player.
Yeah. One player that really stands out to me is Zach Parise as being a very showtime player who steps up in the big games, and he did that with the New Jersey Devils a couple years ago when his team lost to LA in the finals. I'm pretty sure.
That was a while.
Pardon?
That was a while ago.
Yeah,
That was 2012.
But still, I mean, he's still a veteran player in this league, and it shows leadership, and has for the Minnesota Wild for as long as he's been there. Matt Zuccarello also coming in from the Dallas Stars, is a playoff performer. I think he could be, and playing with Galchenyuk, who is a skilled player, but has had his ups and downs as a player. And as we've seen, a very similar player to Galchenyuk in that sense is Hartman, who's really had ups and downs after being touted as a very high prospect and top talent. And then like you said, Kevin Fiala is producing really on a team that doesn't seem to be a very big scorer. And I think it's very balanced, like you said.
Yeah, one very important piece for them up front is Joel Eriksson, who functions as their shutdown centerman. And he's going to be pretty much staple to either Pettersson or Horvat. I think Dean Evison, their coach, is really going to be chasing those matchups just because of how effective he is at getting under the skin of the other teams. I mean, even his teammates throughout training camps have really, talked about how annoying he is to play against. Just always up in your face. It's hard to, he's one of the best shot suppressing forwards in the NHL. Really limits good scoring chances for the other team, gets up in their face, takes away time and space and everything. So he's going to be key to shutting down the dynamic attack of the Canucks, and especially, he's a bit bigger. If he gets his way and manhandles Pettersson, I think Vancouver might be in a little bit of trouble.
Yeah, definitely. They seem to have some players that can really push around, like Mikko Koivu and Hartman, and really throw their body around still.
Yeah,
so, Stahl is a big guy, a big centerman. So.
Even Marcus Foligno as well. He's come into his own offensively, but he was basically known as just a really big, hard checker. Very honest player. It just does what he needs to do. And Jordan Greenway as well, who's added a little bit of skill, but he's a hard player to go into the corners against, and that's why it's going to be such a test for this young Canucks team.
Yeah. Moving on to defense, I'm pretty sure this is where the Minnesota Wild think that they'll really pose a threat to the defense. To the Vancouver Canucks in general, just like stopping them from really doing as much in their top four. Their top four seems to be their thing that really defines them as a team, I think, in the way they try to play. So what do you think about that?
Yeah, you're right on that for sure. And Ryan Suter is getting up there in age, but another close to 50-point season. If the season wasn't short, he would have hit 50 points. He's a model of consistency back there, not even year by year, but shift by shift. He's very good at limiting his energy expenditure. He can rack up huge minutes, important minutes. Just by it's almost like they tried to shorten the game, right? Where instead of a 60-minute game, you really only the high event is happening for 10 to 15, and for a team like Minnesota that doesn't score as much, you're just like limiting the chances of the other team scoring, and you're increasing just the probability that you're going to come out on top, and that's what Ryan Suter is amazing at. Jared Spurgeon is great underrated defenseman, awesome compliment for Suter, analytic darling. I think a huge X factor, I think you'll agree, is what Matt Dumba can bring to the table, wouldn't you say?
Yeah, definitely. We've had conversations about Matt Dumba before, and you were talking about how his shot is his biggest aspect. What do you think that comes into play in this series?
Well, I think it really kind of comes down to confidence with it, but his slap shot is something that allows him to do what not a lot of defensemen can really do consistently, which is just score goals. Really, defensemen as a position, that's not what they're meant to do. But adding it's a bonus, especially for a team like Minnesota that once again will find it a little bit tough to score goals at times. And Dumba can help generate offense from the back end. I'd say most effectively from anyone on the back end. Spurgeon's pretty good too. And Brad Hunt actually has a nice shot as well, but Dumbo's going to be the one who also will step up and be physical, throw a big hit. He's really rose to the occasion during playoff times as well.
Fair enough. Yeah. Going into this goaltending tandem, Alex Stalock and Devin Dubnyk. This is by far one of the weakest, I think, in the entirety of the qualifiers. Stalock, who really dragged the Minnesota Wild into the position they're in, but still, in saying that, isn't exactly who you'd want as your number one goalie going into a playoffs of any kind. And Devin Dubnyk has dealt with stuff outside of hockey, but also just hasn't had the best season statistically. So really is questionable in whether you can really stick him in the starting position despite his veteran presence and his experience in the past and past playoffs he's been in and been through. So it's really hard to say who's going to get the start. It'll really depend on camp. I think that's going to be a big definer for this not Nashville, sorry, for this Minnesota Wild's team. And yeah, that's what I got to say.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, there's one school of thought is that Alex Stalock, as you said, he helped them kind of down the stretch as Minnesota kind of caught fire. It was because of Alex Stalock. But with that being said, I think in this circumstance, I'm not super comfortable with him being my starting goalie entering the playoffs. And, if he earns the job in training camp, that's fine. I just think you open up the competition again to see if Devin Dubnyk can take it back. Because he is, a couple of years ago, he was the real savior of this team when they went through Ilya Bryzgalov as their goalie. You remember that? I mean, Bryzgalov was their goalie in the playoffs.
They had for the longest time who was a Backstrom. Backstrom was their goalie.
Yeah.
Then he had injuries, whatever.
Yeah. So Dubnyk really came in for them, and I don't think he's old enough where it's just disappeared. I think it was off ice issues, and it seems like he's in a place now where if he can put that behind him, I think if he seems ready to go, he's the one you go to for game one.
Fair. It seems the most logical by an NHL standpoint, anyways. So, Anyways, moving on to the Vancouver Canucks. This is one of the most I think will be one of the most exciting teams offensively. In terms of even in terms of watching, um, JT Miller, Elias Pettersson, Tyler Toffoli, Tanner Pearson, Bo Horvat, and Brock Besser make up your top six, and those are an impressive group of players. JT Miller, who came in this past season, has really shaped this and brought this Vancouver Canucks team to the next level offensively, and really shown the way for this young team, and is what gonna be the big factors in this series, I think.
Yeah, Miller was huge for them. Not only for his on ice contributions, which were amazing this season, but just teaching them how to be pros. I mean, he was around amazing teams, recently in Tampa Bay that also had to deal with such high expectations, and before that, Rangers teams that went on deep playoff runs as well. So he's been around for a while and just teaching these young players, really what it means to do things the right way. Has been huge. He's been titled like an accelerant for them in the rebuild. Like they were probably going to get to the stage at some point, but he's helped move it along to the point where it makes sense for them to go out and take what could potentially be a rental in Tyler Toffoli. They really like Toffoli, and they're probably going to try to re-sign him. But at this point, it seems like it was a rental for pretty good prospect and a pick. So but he kind of stabilizes their top six. Where Bo Horvat really hasn't had any top elite players to play with, like Pedersen has in the past, and having Besser there could just unlock even more offensive potential out of Bo Horvat, who's he's kind of been more in the shutdown role, and he will continue to be, but he has potential to still shut down the other team's top lines while also providing pretty good damage on the score sheet himself.
Yeah, 100%. In terms of their third line right wing, what can we talk about? You have some information on Jake Virtanen. What is that?
Yes, yeah. So Jake Virtanen has been at the center of a lot of questions concerning the Canucks training camp right now, and even some off ice incidents beforehand, such as showing up to a club downtown Vancouver, without a mask, which we're not going to get into the politics of playing, of wearing masks and everything, but especially when your team is hoping to come back and go on a big run, it's not something you'd want to jeopardize. If you don't look at anything else, why would you risk going out and getting sick and not being able to contribute to what your team believes is a good chance. But in training camp as well, he's been struggling, and he actually had to get yelled at by Bo Horvat to kind of cool it and get his head on straight, which is a good leadership moment for Horvat, but kind of doesn't say a lot for Virtanen, who was actually replaced in the lineup by Zach McEwen, showing a lot of fire. McEwen, he was undrafted, just keeps working his way up, through hard work, and got a scoring touch as well. So it's possible that Virtanen doesn't even start in the lineup for Vancouver. I think when he's at his best, when he's dialed in, he has amazing speed and a great shot down the wing, which for what's generally a top-heavy Vancouver offense is a pretty good asset to have. But if his head's not on straight, and McEwen is showing good chemistry with Gaudette and Roussel, then maybe Jake Virtanen's got himself into a little bit of a pickle here, and he might have to fight for his spot back.
Yeah. Question: do we know what happened to Josh Levo?
Yeah, Josh Levo, I believe, was dislocated his kneecap, which is pretty painful. I remember seeing the clip and then seeing how pissed he was on the way back to the bench afterwards. And yeah, it was. Yeah, he's. They're hoping he would. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, go ahead.
Well, he would be a later on in the playoffs edition. He's still not skating at this point, I believe. But they'd be hopeful, but I think someone that's closer and can really contribute would be Michael Furland, who's dealing with injuries a lot and even concussion stuff, but he can add a physical edge to Vancouver's lineup that they're kind of lacking overall. And, especially his playoff acumen, which he showed against the Canucks years ago with the Flames. He was an absolute beast. So he could be a real tide turner if he can, get his conditioning back up and they get him to a point where they're comfortable with him going out there and taking a regular shift.
Yeah, no kidding. Going into the defense of the Vancouver Canucks, we have a very top-heavy kind of feeling in terms of stability. I feel very stable with this top pairing in Quinn Hughes and Brandon. Chris Tanev.
Yeah, Chris.
Brandon is his brother in Winnipeg, right?
Yes. No, he's in Pittsburgh now though.
Oh, okay. So there you go. You got moved around, but So Chris Tanev, right-handed shot. Defenseman. I like that first pairing. I think Quinn Hughes has shown his skill and ability and is really growing as a defensive player even as the season went on, and is really making strides, and hopefully he can keep doing that as the playoffs go on. Alex Edler and Tyler Myers are a good second line pairing. I think it's a solid line that can really push you around. Tyler Myers is a big guy, and so is Alex Edler. A big guy doesn't have to mean tall necessarily. It can mean physically strong as well. And then you have Fantenberg and Stetcher. Like, Stetcher is a very skilled young player, and Fantenberg, I think he came from Philadelphia.
No, he came from. He was around Calgary a bit, and the Kings most notably.
Oh, yeah, I know it was the Kings I'm remembering him from.
Yeah,
it's the Kings I'm remembering from. Okay, yeah. So Fantenberg, yeah. So I think he's a big guy as well. If on the Kings, usually those players are pretty used to roughing up their opponents, so I'm pretty sure he could do a good job of that. And other than that, that's what I got to say about the defense.
Yeah, I would, I have a little concern with the Adler-Myers pairing. It's good that they won't be playing against a tough competition, which Hughes and Tanev should have, but neither of them are great skaters at this point. They're not super fast, and I think they could be exposed for a lot of zone time, especially against a Wild team that loves to cycle the puck and get it in there on the forecheck and everything. If they can't move the puck up ice, they could be in trouble a little bit, which is why, beforehand, there's a reason that Myers is put with Hughes, is because Hughes could help move the puck. So, even Stetcher at some point, I think Stetcher would be a better puck mover. So, we'll see kind of how that works. And yeah, I think with the time off for Hughes to get a little bit bigger and just faster, stronger, he'll be electric, and he has the potential to be the best defenseman in this series, which seems like a lot because we're talking about how good the Minnesota defense is, but if he's just on his game and dialed in, especially with Chris Tanev, who's a great defensive defenseman, and will take care of things on their end of the ice, and he's finally healthy, which is huge for Tanev. I mean, he's been the rumor of trade bait for years, and can never really right himself, but when he's healthy, which he'll be able to show now, I think Hughes and Tanev is a great pair.
Yeah, definitely. Moving on to the goaltending, I really like this tandem. I think Jakob Markstrom is worthy of a Vezina trophy this season. In his backup in Thatcher Demko, I think is one of the rising stars of goaltending, like a Carter Hart or Binnington or something like that. I think he has the potential to be a starting goaltender in this league very soon. But in the meantime, Markstrom is putting on a show and is really making that defense look a lot stronger than it is on some nights. And I think that's something you need as any Stanley Cup winning team. I think you can't win without good goaltending, and Markstrom has provided that. and with the ability for Vancouver to score, I think they could do some damage.
Yeah, I do think it's important to bring up the fact that, you're talking about how you like the pieces on the Canucks defense, but defensively, they were not a very good team this year. And Markstrom played, what I thought he should have been a nominee for the Vezina. I thought he should have been there instead of Vasilevsky. Hellebuck deserved the win, but I thought Markstrom was close. And he played out of his mind, but they give up a lot of high quality scoring chances, and that's been an issue for them a lot. And with a younger, more dynamic offensive team, that's pretty common. So Markstrom is a huge piece for them. Being able to take those risks and make those creative plays, and having him backstop them to go further against other teams. You're gonna want to see that progression and development defensively, and that comes from a commitment from the forwards as well, coming back and really protecting the house and stopping those high scoring chances, because that's something Vancouver did really struggle with this season.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. So the big question is, who's winning this one?
Who's winning this one? Well, I think stylistically, this is a very difficult matchup for the Canucks. Offensive team, facing a Minnesota team that's great defensively and is also big, physical, can cycle the puck, get in behind the defense, and just grind it out. So if I was more confident in the Wild's goaltending situation, I would say Minnesota, but I'm not, because I think, what's the quote, like, goaltending is 80% of hockey. Unless you don't have it, then it's 100%. I don't see. I mean, it's a small sample size, so once again, anything could happen. But I don't feel confident enough betting on that goaltending. So I got the Canucks, but I think it'll be a tighter series. It'll be a big learning experience for the Canucks, and this could be the start of a dangerous run for them, because I think beyond this matchup, they have they have enough scoring talent, and if they get that progression defensively, they could be a kind of a dark horse team here.
Yeah, I totally agree. Well, anyways, I think that Vancouver will win this series. Due to the fact that if Markstrom can play like he did during the season, and if this offense can really step up and do what it's built to do, which is tear apart teams limb from limb, then I think this Minnesota Wild goaltending and team in general will have a very tough time and isn't gonna really enjoy this qualifying round. So, yeah.
I don't think their defense will quite get torn apart, but I don't think their goaltending will stand up.
Yeah. Okay. Fair enough. So, anyways, well, that has been another episode of the Seric Show. Thank you very much for watching, and we'll see you again next time.